Slide on over, friend.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Cami Pulsifer. Together with Robin Gowery, we have the pleasure of serving as this year's Interschool Council co-presidents. The ISC is the umbrella organization for our district's 11 school HSAs. Thanks so much for joining us for our final roundtable for this school year, and a sincere thank you to our guest, Dr. Frank Ranelli, the LMSD Superintendent, for being with us. And he's here today to present the strategic plan. In shifting the program to a more cooperative and interactive form of communication, we ask everyone here, both in the room and for those on Zoom, to treat Dr. Ranelli and all of our subsequent roundtable guests with the utmost respect and appreciation for being here. This meeting, as with all of our roundtable meetings, will occur in the spirit of cooperation, open communication, and mutual respect. In order to enable our participants to equitably ask questions, we ask that when you're called upon to ask a question, you only ask one question at a time. You can always ask a second question after those have had a turn to ask their first. And in addition, we'll be allowing those on Zoom to ask questions throughout the meeting, and their participation will be coordinated by our Vice Presidents of Communications. Before we begin, we invite you to join us this evening for our next event in our Parent Education Series, and that is Preparing for the Transition to Middle School, where we'll be featuring a panel of current 5th grade parents from all 3 middle schools to give unofficial tips and advice to incoming middle school parents. This event will begin at 7 p.m. and will be held exclusively on Zoom. For information about any of our upcoming presentations, please visit and follow us on Facebook and Instagram. To view any of our past roundtables or parent education programs, please visit the LMSD Interschool Council ISC YouTube page. Our meeting today will be captioned, recorded, and posted to the ISC YouTube channel. Now let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Ranelli.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. First, I'd like to say, when I got here last year, it was a pleasure working with you for that short period of time. And then as I entered this year, it's been great. The flow of the communication, information that I get from you all, the presentations that we do, I think are very valuable to the community. But I appreciate the partnership and everything that you do for us.
Feelings
really
mutual.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I guess I don't want to do a whole bunch of just lecturing or talking, but I did want to present the strategic plan, which is, by the way, on our website. Under lmsd.org, if you go to the About button across the top, and you'll get all these other options, but strategic plan for the old one and the 26 to 31 information is right there. There is a really, I didn't print it out and present it. I'm not going to present it here, but there's a really in-depth document. It's about 40 or 41 pages about the process on the website. It outlines the meeting dates. It outlines the survey results, how many people were at each meeting, what the focus was, how that information paired down to the next meeting and the next meeting's goals. And I'll go over a little bit of that today, but please, if I urge you to check that out, because it was a pleasure working with the CCIU and the focus that we both had as far as the meetings were concerned and where we wanted them to go was great. So I had done this process a couple times in my past life and in Piscataway, and this was it was great. I think it's extremely important. When I got here, our strategic plan was done in 2014. So it was about 10 years, 11 years since we've had an updated one. I really feel they are the anchor. I said this a bunch of times, the anchor to what we all should be aspiring to, so that the goals are driven and anchored to these things. You'll notice that they're a 5-year period from 26 to 31. And they're by design. I've said this a lot of times, and I'll say it. Well, I'll continue to say it. You can go 30 years in the past, and you can go 30 years in the future, and these overarching goals will probably still be the ones you choose, right? Academic growth, engagement, safety, hiring and keeping good teachers. So you might say, well, how do we know what we need in 5 years? Why is this a 5-year plan? Well, the goals are overarching, and they're pretty broad for a reason, because we don't know what we'll need in 5 years. Every year we'll write district goals, which we will get them approved in June coming up. And then from there, they'll be more specific to what we need now in the upcoming school year. And then the schools will write their goals based on those district goals tied to the strategic goals and so The board will also have goals, but they're the board goals. Whether they're tied to the strategic plan or not, it's really up to them. I think those are more how they operate as a governing body, things like that. So any questions about that so far?
So I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I remember, like I've seen past superintendents in Lower Merion, like put kind of superintendent goals. And is that different than the district goals? Or
Absolutely. Yeah. Superintendent goals are my personal goals that, number one, to get evaluated on, but that's irrelevant. But they are goals that I think I need to make sure that I target so I can put all this stuff in place. So my superintendent goals for 26-27 are already approved and on the website.
Okay.
Under the superintendent.
Okay.
There was last year's goals because my year is middle of April, right? So there were last year's goals, my evaluation, and then this year's goals that we're going to enter.
Okay.
So yeah, they are different, but they're all tied to this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll notice that the 4 goals that I have are tied to the direct information that we have here as far as the strategic goals. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. So I handed out a large document. This isn't available on the website, but it's encompassed in all of the things that we talked about. So, but I'm going to start by talking about just the process that we did and the amount of work that went into this. And again, I appreciate all of the people who took the survey, appreciate the community input at the meetings. They are difficult, right? They're hard work. People come and they are surprised at how much work and attention and they need to have and do during those meetings. But it's all about what the community wants. It's all about, these are not my goals. They're not driven by me. Again, I could have written them, like I could have written the topics, but I didn't have any input. If you noticed, I wasn't even at any of the tables, and that was done on purpose, right? I moved around a little bit. I talked to some people, but I did not sit down at a table and give input. I'm not a community member. I wanted it to be representative of people in the community, which we had teachers, we had students, we had staff members, we had board members. So it was really a nice process. But these were not driven by me, but they happened to have the outcome that I had planned. Because again, you go all the way in the continuum of time, and you'll still need the same things for education. So we're happy that it came out that way. So way back in last August, we made contact with the CCIU, and we've been working with them ever since. And have a timeline here of phases, right? The first phase was planning and preparation. So they came in and sat with us and wanted to talk about what our vision was and what their experience was and how that commingled and meshed together. And they had some things that were new to me, and I had some things that were new to them from both of our experiences in the past. And it worked out really, really well. So again, for phase 1, which was September in September, 1st to the 20th, project charter, engagement plan, confirmed plan team, it was all the confirmations of what deliverables were, what we expected, the time, what they expected us to do, because we had to do a lot of work as an administrative team as well. Phase 2, the timing of that was the September to the end of October, and that was really about the mission and vision review. And that encompassed the first meeting in October, which is when we talked about the mission and vision statement, which I'll go over as well. Talk about key milestones there during that time from September to the end of October. And then really what they were good at and what I was hopeful for was what was the plan for the outcome? What was the deliverables that we could have expected? And they came through with all of those, but we had planned that to begin with. What did we want and how were we going to get there? Then we built how were we going to get there. So phase 3, after we talked about the mission and vision at the meeting, they did all their work behind the scenes and flowed down to what they thought came out of that meeting, the information. And then the phase 3 was the core value exploration. So it was, okay, now we have our mission, a draft of our mission and vision, or what we think it should be, or the important points. Now, what are our core values? What does the district and the community members really feel are the most important things as far as their students are concerned, as far as the information to families and what a school district really means to a family. So that was from October 1st to the end of November. And again, same thing, focus, key milestones, outcome and deliverables, really, really good stuff. Phase 4 was the strategic priorities. So from October to the end of January, seems like a long period of time, But again, we built on that information from the mission and vision, from the strategic, from the core values. And by the end of January, we really wanted to have in the funnel, so to speak, what the topics, at least, of the strategic goals would be, right? So really talked about capturing broad stakeholder input via the survey from October and September, future activities, the key milestones from the survey, the leadership results. So they came in and worked with the leadership team a lot, came in and worked with some principals and administrators in the central office. And then we really talked about some options of priorities of what they were and how they got there. And in that 41-page document, if you pay attention to that, if you look at that, you'll be able to see how they funneled everything down. Phase 5 was from January, the end of January to the middle of February, and that was goal identification. Phase 6 was a completed strategic plan, which was from February 9th to about, April, May. I happened to get them done for the April board meeting, and presented them. And I thought that was really important for me to get it done as early as possible. So they gave me everything that they had and what they thought were good strategic draft goals. And I kind of reworded them and made sure they fit to what our vision was and what I had heard from all of the information that we have. Overall, 10 months of really good work. You hope when you go into a process like this and, you spend some resources and the time and money and people's time, that it comes out the way you'd hope. And this was, far beyond what I'd hoped. It was really a great process. So questions on that portion of. Okay. Usually what happens is the first meeting of this process, there's a bunch of people, and then the second meeting there's less. And look at this meeting here, right? We're at the end of the year and it's a little bit less people, but nevertheless, really important information that we do. But at that last meeting, there weren't a lot of people because, again, the work had been done. It was really more of an update of how everything was. But I appreciate everybody's input. So again, I handed out this document, which I'm not going to go over, but it has a lot of the information. And we're going to talk about the mission and vision statement for now. So a lot of people get confused about what a mission statement is and what a vision statement is. So I really just put 3 words at the top of each one, right? Mission statement defines our current process, our purpose, and a vision statement is the long-term goals, what we hope a student leaves here with long-term, the skills, the characteristics, the fortitude, things like that. So I really don't want to read the mission statement. I'm not a reader for adults. So if you want to take a second and look at that and see if you have any questions on how we got there to the mission statement, I'll let you do that, and I'll talk a little bit more before we talk about it. So our old mission statement, you probably could have asked anybody who was here 20 years and they had no idea what it was. It was really long, had a lot going on. And in a lot of districts, that's what happens. You try to put a lot of information in a paragraph, and the paragraphs tend to be, 6, 7, 10 sentences long, and it's just too much, right? It really needs to be focused and short about what our purpose is right now. And if you talk about what it has, right? Cultivates social and academic excellence, fosters well-being, but the things that were most important in those survey results, in the initial meetings and things like that. And it really defines our current purpose, what we hope when kids are in school, they get from us, what we hope that the teachers get from us and families get from us. So questions on the mission statement, because I think it encompasses what we should want while the kids are with us. So any questions on that? Yeah, it's nice and short. Yeah, and I say that on purpose. I think it's really an important point to see that, 'cause it's not confusing. It's not redundant. It doesn't contradict itself. And some mission statements do that. But it really hits home to what we want. Right?
Can I ask you?
Yeah, sure.
When I just look at this, one of the first things for everyone online, it's saying fosters well-being in students by encouraging creativity. And when I think of our district, I think there's a lot of people that just look at it as thinking like high performing. Yeah. And so that popped out to me early, that creativity and kindness are 2 of the first elements of that.
Sure.
And I just wondered if you could speak to how you kind of saw the balance of that coming in for both the survey and at the community meetings, how that sort of balanced out between the achievement piece and also the building a better human type.
Yeah, I
piece.
think what you, the last three words you said is the most important thing, right? We could produce the highest achieving people, but if they're not good citizens, if they're not good people, we didn't do our job, right? I think it's very, very competitive. I mean, my kids are right out of college now and, 25, 23 and 22 and, they're working, right? And it's a difficult, challenging job market and things like that. But I say this a lot. The greatest compliment that I could get are my kids are good humans, right? Is that they can interact with adults. They're polite. Whether they're polite to me or not, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, right, well, so that's exactly right. But a friend of ours will come over and say, "Oh, your son asked me, did I get my hair cut?" And just something weird like that, right? But if they're good humans, we've really done our job, right? I'll also say this, and a lot of people won't agree with me, but that's okay. If a kid gets a C in an honors biology class as a sophomore, it's not going to define the rest of their lives, right? But people are really hung up on these because everything is so competitive. Everything, I got to get into the best colleges, and that's all well and good. But how do they handle that C, right? How do they come back from that? How is their character when they struggle? Because they're going to struggle as soon as they leave here, right? The world is going to challenge them. That's a line in one of my graduation speeches. The world is going to challenge them right from the start. And how are they going to handle it? Right? It's going to punch them right in the face, and mommy and daddy cannot help them. Right? So it's interesting though. So you talk about creativity, you talk about characteristics of a good human, right? How would they handle struggle? Are they going to be polite people when in chaos, right? Or when things don't go their way? The creativity part, we have great kids here. They're unbelievable. Our district was what, the 12th or 14th year in a row, named a great community for music education. If you go through even at the younger grades, right? The artwork that they do, the art show that you put on, you saw that, it was unbelievable, right? But people associate Lower Merion with number one or number two or number three in the state. But it takes all of that. I give credit to all of our staff members. Our teachers really, I don't take any credit for any of this. I mean, been here a year, so you won't see anything that happens under me for like 5 or 6 years from now. But they're great. Teachers are great, and the kids are great. But I think all encompassing of a good human is a really good way to put it, right? How are they going to interact and make their surroundings better? So maybe a lot of my personal philosophies there, but I hope that matters.
So can I ask a follow-up
Sure.
question? So how does that, I don't know if you can give us an example now since nothing's been voted on, but like how that will trickle down. So like creativity, critical thinking, and kindness, I think we all can easily back, but like how does that trickle down through the elementary schools, middle schools, high schools? Like how does that
Yeah.
translate into
Sure.
changes that we might see 5 years from now?
So you'll see changes hopefully every year because the district goals and the school goals will be tied to this. We don't know what we'll need as a district 4 years from now, but we know they'll be tied to this somehow, right? Academic growth, safe schools, right? Engagement. So you'll notice that the district goals that I drafted or we drafted as a central office match up these to a little more specific things, and they'll be measurable to where we want a 5% increase in something or a 10% increase in something, right? And the schools should be doing the same thing. So every year there'll be progress and hopefully changes that you'll see toward that, right? So that's how it kind of works, right? And I think the overall philosophy of somebody being here, and again, I'll go back to this, so that being in the seat a long time, people can breathe, right? If I'm here 3, 4, 5 years, they could just breathe where it's not this tense situation, and they could start to go back to, right? Educating kids with a little more freedom of, okay, I'm going to do what's right for all these kids and not just because I'm nervous about who's in charge. So I think that matters.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So follow up to your follow-up.
Yeah, please.
I hear what you're saying with like what actionable items will like hit the student body.
Creativity where, I know they're.
Right. So in terms of like, Dr. Ranelli, what you just said about, programming that aligns with this, what's your, intention, how that's communicated to the parent guardian community? Is that like a board meeting thing?
Yeah,
Like
so-
an email from you,
Sure.
or like, is it following a certain committee, or?
Yeah, so I'll do the same thing with the district goals as I did with the strategic plan. They will get approved at a board meeting, hopefully in June. And that'll be communicated just like the strategic plan wants to be on the website. We'll send emails out. Amy will send an update. Amy Buckman will send an update of what happened at the meeting, and the district goals will be really important, just like the strategic goals are. And then the school goals, I expect the schools to send those out to their school communities as well when they develop those things. So, yeah, I mean, this is all tied to a consistent form of leadership and a consistent form of educating the kids that, it can't change every 5 seconds, right? We can't do professional development that's all the way over here because it's the next best thing, and then something over here. I'll say this, I'll probably get in trouble, but I don't care. People get frustrated with me because I don't change things, right? We do a lot of research and put a lot of resources into whether it be a curriculum or a way of doing things or policies or things like that. And again, I talk about seeing the results in schools. It doesn't happen right away. What we did 5 years ago is showing now. So the transition of everything these past 5 years, unfortunately, are showing some cracks now. Right? They're showing some cracks in some teaching. So teaching across the district is not the same. Discipline across the district, to no fault of their own, right? Principals and teachers are like, well, if I'm not going to, subconsciously, right? If I'm not going to get a clear direction, I'm going to do what I think is best for the kids, right? I'm going to do it, and everybody has the kid's best interest in mind. But you're starting to see those cracks. Like people will call me or have issues with, okay, well, I have 2 kids in 2 different schools and the rules are different. I get that. Right? It's going to take a little bit of time for me to be able to put all this stuff back in the box. But they get frustrated with me because I'm not a big changer of things, right? We invest a lot of money. We're a very high performing district. Because we're not listed number 1 in the state and we're listed number 2, doesn't mean our kids are going to be less successful. I get hung up on that. I get frustrated with people when they say that. Oh my God, we're number 3 now. Really? Right? Your individual student is still going to be great. Right? We have a lot of work to do with kids who don't have the same resources at home, right? Who struggle with certain things. We have a lot of work to do in that area. So you'll see a lot of my attention this coming year with that. So I think that's really important. So did I answer your question?
I think so.
Okay.
That's how you're gonna communicate.
I talk a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, I talk a lot. I apologize, but I think it's important that people, as they start to get to know me, really hear my philosophy. And this is a great forum for me to be able to say that.
So kind of piggybacking on the idea of the schools are all going to have their own goals, and you saying now that and acknowledging that schools have different cultures, some of them have different rules. How do you envision them writing their own goals that will not conflict with what another school, or not conflict, but be so different and an outlier from another school that you may continue having these different policies on or different implementations of either discipline or curriculum and teaching standards? Like, how do you marry that?
So I think they're 2 totally separate things, right? Our culture, which is the way we do things, right? And our policies and procedures are totally separate than I want to raise this thing 5% this year. Right? It's not, one of my goals in a school isn't about discipline, or unless it's about, lowering the discipline rate. But it's not about, it wouldn't be, those 2 are not the same thing. Did I answer that? I hope so, because goals are more specific to the achievement or getting kids involved, or I want to increase my students who are part of clubs and activities by 8%. That has nothing to do with the rules, right?
Right. I guess the parity of that, if one school is working on increasing, for example, participation of students with special needs in clubs and activities, and another school isn't working on that, there could potentially be, disparity in that.
Yeah, there could be, but one school might already be way ahead of that, and they might see a disparity somewhere else.
Correct.
Yeah,
Or
so-
it could be one school finds that to be an important issue
Yeah.
at that time with their school culture, and another school might not.
Yeah, you're not wrong. But I'll say this, that they're not gonna write them and that's it, they're done, right? They'll all go through me and we'll make sure that they,
Mhm.
maybe that's your answer to your question. We'll make sure they fit into the puzzle. Right? Because they'll present them to me in the summer and then we'll make sure that they're in line with all of this.
Can I ask a thought? Sorry, I realized what I'm asking, and I mean, I promise this will be my last one about
That's
this.
okay.
But just the creativity piece, because I'm really, like, especially as we're talking a lot about AI and how it's coming into education, and obviously creativity can be music and arts, but creativity and like how our kids learn in the classroom. I'm curious, because I actually really like it. And you know, as I've got kids now in college and we're talking about what they major in and what careers are still going to be there, and a lot is centered on like the critical thinking, the creativity, like how to approach problems, how to ask questions. So is that sort of what you're, because I'm curious about how that's gonna filter down, and I just imagine that there are a lot of policies, decisions, finances that are gonna be tied to something like that, or am I just making it bigger than?
I think you
kind of
are.
is in
Yeah,
this?
I think you are. Right, as far as to get where you're going, I think
Yeah,
it's about, I'll look at that as my role as principal, when I was principal, right? I would really target this specific year. My staff is going to focus on questioning and answering.
Mhm.
My staff is gonna focus on having students write differently. You know, things like that. And not necessarily wasn't necessarily a goal that was tied to the strategic plan, but they all are really,
Mhm.
right? About engagement and creativity and all that. But I think I think that's a principal role. When I was principal, I did that stuff. I think what these are, what the mission statement is, and we're still only on the mission statement about
yeah,
you know, the creativity part. I think it's when the community was doing this, I didn't do this, right? When the community was doing it, they wanted just these creative kids who could think differently. I think that's what they were talking about.
okay,
And then we take that and we say, okay, well, as a school leader, as a district leader, what does that look like? And how do I put all that puzzle? As a supervisor of a community, of a discipline, right? A curriculum supervisor, what does that look like?
Mhm.
As a building leader, as a department supervisor, and
Right.
as a teacher,
right,
right? But I think that, for me, remembering my roles, right?
Yeah.
As a principal, I really could have driven that. And we have principal meetings all the time. So one of the things that we talk about in the evaluation process of
Mhm.
teachers is, okay, well, what are we gonna focus on? As Daniel said, that we're gonna focus on questioning and answering is always the most difficult piece for teachers to really grasp.
Mhm.
Or make sure that they're leading in difficult. Not that they can't do it, it's just to fit it in and ask the right questions that are not, you know, closed-ended, that are not really leading, things like that. That's where the creativity comes in,
okay.
Can we move down to the strategic priorities?
if you'd like.
Right. Cause I like, it gives like teeth,
Yeah.
right, to the vision and mission statement, and you know, and a lot of my work with implementation of policy, as you know, implementation and what things look like in practice sometimes matches what your goals are, and
Yeah.
sometimes does not
Sometimes
match
it
what your
doesn't,
goals are. And I appreciate how inclusive and transparent the process was in developing this. And I'd love to hear what your plans are regarding oversight of implementation of the strategic priorities and your transparency plans with folks outside of the district or with the school board and with parents and with et cetera on movement on the strategic priority.
Yeah, so my oversight really rests in data, right? And how we look at these and how we tie them to the yearly goal. So the district goals for 26-27 are measurable, right? So my oversight is, okay, how do we measure that? What percentage increases are we looking for? And then moving to the schools, they're gonna be measurable as well. So you talk about what the data says and how we do that. And yeah, we'll give an update at the end of the year on the district goals, which are tied to this. So basically moves that about how we succeeded or did not in certain areas. Like if we wanted to increase something by 8% and we only increased it 4%, very transparent, 4%, right? This is what we did, this is what we plan to do. This is why we didn't hit the targets if we could identify that. So yeah, I think that's the way I go, but the data is going to speak for itself when you talk about the measurable things.
So that's on the back end, once like you've had a year of implementation, what about on the front end, like, here are our goals, here are our priorities. Here are the steps we're gonna take over the next year to try to meet those goals and priorities, and then we'll come back at the end of the year and let you know how successful or not those things were.
Yeah, so I will review in this meeting. We talked a little bit about what September is gonna look like here. I'll review the professional development focus that we have going into the year. And it'll be kind of evident on how we do that. I'm not gonna give updates all year on how we're doing as far as the goals are concerned. So we'll talk about, okay, well, how did we take this and make it into the actual plans for what we have control over? And then district goals, school goals will drive that. So I hope that helps understand how our focus is and what we're doing.
Just one piece that
Sure.
feels missing is, you have the goals, but like, what's your implementation plan to meet those goals up front? Not updates throughout the year.
Yeah.
What's the actual things that are gonna happen in the schools to meet those goals?
Yeah.
I would just recommend, I think would be helpful for people to know.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sure. I guess since we're on strategic goal one, any question on that? Again, we talk about academic excellence and growth, and there are four, again, if you're at home, you can see them on the website. There are four subset goals under there, right? Align the curriculum is really important, right? Make sure we're teaching across the district as we intend, things like that. Close the achievement gap, which is one of my particular goals, my personal goals. I have a certain part of that, and then strengthen and support the pathways beyond graduation. A lot of
Oh, I'm sorry. I just was gonna ask you what that means.
Yeah.
exactly.
So I don't mean any disrespect to anybody, including superintendents and principals and things like that. When I was a principal and even as a superintendent, the most important role for me was high school counselor for the support for kids. They're the ones who take your babies in ninth grade and are with them and guide them, no pun intended, but guide them about, what their interests are, where they are, things like that. So we want to make sure that we're putting them and giving them the opportunity, stretching them to courses that they might be interested in. My son was able to take an engineering academy in ninth through 12th grade. And what I found most valuable that is not if he liked it, but if he didn't, right? Is he going to waste 2 years of college money figuring out, this really isn't for me? He did that in high school, right? So that was part of the guidance counselor saying, okay, well, how are we going to do this when they met him in 8th grade? So they put him in the project lead the way curriculum and academy, and it was great, right? So those types of things are important. So we get get our hands on them in 9th grade, so to speak, and then try to figure out what they like and what drives them and give them the opportunity and try to stretch them as far as we can, give them access to courses that they didn't think they would be successful or things like that. So a lot of schools promote that they have to, right? It's a number for the state that they're 96% of our kids graduated and 74% of them went to 4-year colleges. Well, how many finish in 4 years? I think that's really, really important indicator on how well we got them ready. And I know that's self-reported, but I think it's something that we can start to track and start to have kids come back and let us know. It's a lot of work and it's a way to figure that out, but graduation rates that colleges boast are based on 6 years, right? They don't really tell you that, but when they go, it's like, you're for orientation there. They're trying to get your kids, not even orientation, right? You're trying to get your kids to sign on to go there. Or our graduation rate is, 82% or whatever it may be. Well, how many years did it take? That gives a really good indicator on how well we got them ready. Right? When I was a principal, I did a study on how well our kids were ready as far as writing was concerned. Wasn't a really longitudinal or whatever. I probably asked 50 college professors through email or whatever it may be, and only 4% of them came back and said our kids were ready. And that wasn't just from New Jersey where I was; it was in general that they come to college ready to write. So that was something that we really targeted. And again, it wasn't wasn't my dissertation, it wasn't all that stuff, but it was an indicator for us that we brought up at our professional development. Talked a lot about our teachers about writing. Everybody's a reading and writing teacher. Just because you're a math teacher doesn't mean you're not a reading teacher. So that's important. Thanks.
I love the focus in the mission and vision on kind of the whole student, not just looking at academic, but also social emotional growth. And so I was curious, there's a piece under the strategic priorities under the academic bit about measuring, communicating, and acting on student growth. I know that in years past, there was some discussion of kind of re-looking at report cards, particularly when kids segue to middle school, becomes solely a letter grade by subject. You lose the narrative from the teacher, you lose kind of any sense of social emotional behavior, critical thinking, whatever. Do you see that possibly being a piece of that particular metric? Would it fall elsewhere, or how do you envision kind of reporting out to parents on progress beyond just that?
So there's a lot of policies and procedures around grading, right? Around homework, around a lot of that stuff. Do I see with this being a 5-year plan, us getting to that? Yeah, not next year.
Sure.
Right? I mean, there'll be meetings after meetings and people will be very have very strong opinions about should homework count for a grade? Should we even assign homework? Right? You know, things like that. And that is definitely a piece, the social and emotional. Should that be reported out more regularly, at least in 5th and 6th grade? But yeah, absolutely. I think that's a big piece of what we want to target as we started off the meeting to try to create these good humans, right? To try to give them the opportunity to challenge themselves socially, right? And emotionally, and make sure that you're trying to build that fortitude with them as well, not just academically. All right. So strategic goal number 2 is more about the safe and supported schools and inclusive schools. I want to just take a look at that and see if you have any questions there. You look at the subsets, right? Foster a culture of respect and belonging. Number 2, ensure a trusted adult connection, which is extremely important. Number 3, physical safety and emergency preparedness. And number 4, the digital safety system. So all things that are not going away, all things that we need to make sure we have strengthened and target next year. For me, we had this emergency occurrence in October. Everybody remembers that, I'm sure. We did a lot of work after that, especially in line with the police department, who I don't think was in line with not a fault of their own, but just in general. Things looked great on paper last summer. Didn't challenge out to what we wanted to do. So when I changed things in November, December, and I sent that communication out, I don't remember what date that was. There were probably 4 or 5 changes on that. There's 6 or 7 more that I want to do that I think are good practice. But I really didn't want to change things like that in the middle of the year. I think they were more encompassing of change, and teachers understanding is a really big part of the safety. They don't understand the safety procedures, or are confused, or they don't have enough time to drill or practice or ask questions, I think is a problem. So I worked with our new supervisor of safety and security. We just had a meeting with the police department in implementing more changes over the summer. That'll strengthen that, like those types of things, like we look at. I think that's a student who could sit in the classroom and feel safe from bullying, from any outside threats, from whatever, is going to be able to focus more on school and themselves and getting better. So anyway, that was part of that goal. So, any questions? Yeah.
Can you talk more about your thoughts on how you look to achieve
the digital safety? Yeah. So we talk about filtering systems and things like that. I think it's more about strengthening that, doing everything we possibly can to make sure things aren't going through. A lot of it's curricular stuff as well. Perfect example is YouTube, right? If I took YouTube away and blocked it in schools, teachers would be handcuffed in certain situations, right? Unfortunately, part of YouTube is terrible, right? So if we continue to allow that in certain ways, It's not good. So we can block what we block at school, right? But when they go to their home filters, it's different, right? So more control and oversight for parents, which we're honing in on, some controls that they have at home, where it takes away the argument of, well, shut your computer off, or what are you looking at, or whatever it may be. You have more controls over what sites you allow in your house, what time the computer shuts off, with no argument. I have 3 kids, I don't remember the argument back and forth, right, about the phones and about the computers and things like that. So yeah, it's about that. Also digital citizenship. We want to try to make sure we touch more on that, at a younger age, about what that looks like, and how posts online, social media affect people, things like that. Yeah, it's not an easy topic, but if you attack it from a lot of sides, you can make some progress. But I think it's more about oversight and parental controls. That's going to be the biggest, I think, game changer as we enter this year.
My children all report there have been actions lately to address it.
Yeah,
The filtering has gotten a lot better
Yeah.
in the last month and a half,
Yeah, so
to their,
dismay, yeah, of course.
yeah.
I would appreciate the safety control, some controls, like
Sure.
my oldest graduated a number of years ago now. And I would say, like, I didn't realize, I was okay with the computer, but then, and my kids always did homework in their rooms. But then all of a sudden they had a TV in their room that was given to them by the school district.
sure.
And I
Yep.
couldn't, it was very
Sure.
hard for me to.
Yeah, so I was given a demo on some things that I'm hoping to bring in for September, right? On an app that'll be on your phone that you could see what the kid did all day,
That's pretty cool.
right? Right, and you can see how long they were on ESPN, right? Or how long they were on Snapchat if they got to that in your house, right? They wouldn't be able to get to it at school, right? You'd be able to just click a button on that app and shut the computer off for a certain schedule. So after 9 o'clock, if you choose that in your household, then we can shut them off. I could shut them off as a district, but that would cause
Yeah.
mayhem in the district, right? My kid goes to swimming until 9 o'clock. He does homework between 10 and 11. You can't shut it off at 9 o'clock, right? So that gives you controls over building that schedule of when the computer would be able to get internet access, even though you have that control at home.
Yeah.
You have that control.
Through my router,
Yeah, but a lot of people don't know how to.
they
do
don't
that,
know.
right? And they're intimidated by
You
it.
can't educate
If you had an app like-
everybody on their
Yeah,
individual.
if you had an
routers.
app that you could just say, okay, I'm gonna build this schedule and have it go on and off at this particular time, it would be much easier. So that's what we could do to help. So there's a lot of things, and that'll all be, and I know there's much debated topic about technology. That'll all come out in the next month or two. You're welcome. All right, number 3. Probably one of the biggest indicators of student success in schools is how engaged they are. How engaged they are in class, how engaged they are doing their homework. It's not engaged doesn't just mean, okay, what am I doing in school? What clubs am I there, right? How engaged are they and how attached they are to the work? A lot has to do with teachers, right? A lot has to do with parents. A lot has to do with how motivated is the child to succeed in school, right? I was having a conversation with my cousin yesterday, and he has 2 very different kids. And they're both going to college next year. One has a sophomore, the same college. One is a sophomore, one is a freshman. And his freshman, he's like, I don't have any worries at all, right? The sophomore is like, he's bright enough, gets all A's, but is not engaged at all in the work, like doesn't see the goal. That's really important, right? So to get that in one of them is about a trusted adult. And, I've found over the years as a school leader, as a teacher, as a coach, if you connect with those kids, they'll run through a wall for you. Did a time on task study. And this was a study with information that I had. Really couldn't produce any findings because you'll find out the last piece is kind of arbitrary, but as a leader, you just know. We measured the kids all from 3rd grade to 8th grade. The time on task they had for their state testing, right? No surprise, right? The more minutes they spent on the test correlated to up to 20 points higher on the state test score. The key piece, though, was who they had as a teacher, right? And you broke that out and said, okay, well, let's put all these kids by class, right? For the most part, and not all, right? The kids who had a teacher that wasn't engaging were spending less time on the test. So that's the piece I couldn't produce, right? How do you say, oh, you're not as engaging, or your personality is not great, or whatever, you don't connect with the kids as much. We talked to the teachers about it, but it wasn't something I could put out and produce. But it was really important. So you talk about the teachers, and you talk about their connection, and you talk about what they mean to kids. Yeah, it's really important. So the engagement is important, right? The advisors for a club, like some kids are going to do it no matter what. Like they want it on the resume, they want this, they want to be here, they want to build robotics, even though they don't like the teacher. But a lot of kids are going to do it because it's fun. A lot of kids are going to do it because their friends are doing it. Their friends are doing it because it's fun. They like the teacher. They're given some freedom there, be creative to do different things. So whether it be engagement in the classroom or on a field or in a club or even at lunch and learn, what that looks like, right? Being engaged with kids, building your social and emotional foundation is really important for us. So the engagement for us is there's never going to be a goal a year that I don't have engagement in some way yeah.
I agree. Such an essential piece. I was just curious about whether that the teachers get any like professional development around engaging.
Yeah.
Or how to engage.
Yeah, since I've been here, no, and we don't have that plan for the summer, I'll be honest with you, but in the future we will, just because there's so much going on. I have done that in the past, right? Where it was more done in the professional learning communities, not as a big professional development for 800 teachers, right? Because it's difficult to do that. But we broke it down in professional learning communities and talked about how, what skills do you have and what do you bring to the table? How do you do that? And I've seen teachers change, the way they do things just because their colleagues do it and it works. So as be honest as I can, we probably don't have that plan, but as far as PLCs are concerned, we definitely talk to the principals about building that into what that looks like.
I wonder if there's a tie-in with, I was thinking about the amazing teachers and staffers that had won the You Matter Award both this year and last year, and getting some of those.
It's a great idea, yeah.
And thinking that they being able to informally at some type of a connect schools share some of their best practices, what they're doing, because they're doing incredible stuff.
So some of them aren't teachers, like that, they just have a different perspective and engagement with that could be really interesting.
There are some things you can't teach, right? And that people just can't pull off.
Yeah.
Once somebody, it's interesting, it was before school happened, I was a principal and kid across probably way down the hall there or whatever. He's like, hey, Ranelli, whatever. And the teacher stood next to me and says, you're gonna let him talk to you like that? It's very disrespectful. I'm like, that is the ultimate sign of respect when they feel comfortable to be able to do that, right? A senior prank one year, right? I get into school one morning and I go to my desk and like this and scared out of my mind, there was a pheasant underneath my desk. Live pheasant in a cage. In a cage. Right? Oh, in a cage, right? So, and on the cage was one of 9, right? There were 9, meaning there were 9 animals in my assistant principal's office wasn't in a cage, which that was annoying. It's just flying around the office, right? So we located this was before, it's like 7 o'clock in the morning, right? I get on the phone, I'm like, Wes, where are they? Because I knew who it was, I knew what it was all about. And like, you're not in trouble yet, but if this goes on, you will. So, it's about that. It's about, again, certain things you can't teach and they're gonna have to figure it out. But there are tricks of engaging kids and making them want to be in your class. And there are kids who don't want to be in your class, and that's tough, if you make it that way. So.
I have a quick question, please. When we're talking about teachers and like engagement with students, how are we capturing like student voice and how they're feeling from an emotional point of view within the classroom setting? Like, for example, I did some work with my son at one point on like how to ask questions with a teacher that he felt belittled them when they ask questions. So I'm wondering, like, how do we because ultimately the kids are the ones experiencing them. How are we getting that information from the students?
So one of my goals, and it's on the website now, I will do 2 surveys of entire staff, well, probably 3rd grade and up, in the fall to get a baseline and then present all that information to important people, including teachers. And then at the end of the year as well. So if we see some things that are alarming and break that down, hopefully we can get to where you're talking about a specific incidents where we're not ignoring or just hypothesizing why a kid doesn't feel comfortable in school, right? That stuff's important to me. Also in this goal is about trusted adults and building belonging. And our hope is that kids feel comfortable enough to be able to either talk to their counselor or another adult about situations where they feel uncomfortable in any way. So it's really try to triangulate the information in different ways, and I'm not full of it, right? I'm really trying to get down to that information. But a lot of it is going to be the comfortability that a student feels to go to an adult to talk about how they feel in class, whether it be that teacher or not. You would think it wouldn't be because they feel belittled already. But if we have an overall, if we could say, okay, well, high school juniors feel this way, and I want it to be anonymous because I want real life, real data instead of kids saying, I'm not going to put my name on this. Or if I have to put my name, I'm either not going to take it or I'm not going to be honest because I don't want to be identified. But if we see trends, that's really important for us. But also one of the goals here is to build that, have that trusted adult in the building. So hopefully that it could start with that in the counseling office as well.
I have questions.
Wait, sorry.
Sorry, I just wanted to,
Okay, wait.
So Michelle,
Pause. Yeah, go ahead,
sorry,
Michelle.
I just had one
follow up.
follow-up question behind it. I think for like younger, like I guess high school age students, building that self-confidence to be able to identify a problem is difficult in itself. But I think that would need to be spelled out explicitly, like at the beginning of the year, when they sit all the kids down, like, hey, if you guys are feeling uncomfortable in any way in any of your classrooms, here's the steps you can follow. I think like explicitly letting them know that, because I think that, not everybody's going to feel comfortable speaking on an adult. Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely do. And that is part of the plan, right? The principal is to make sure that they communicate to the kids, this is where you go when you have some kind of problem or whatever it may be. I 100%, I agree with you. Not everyone's good. I have 3 very different kids. My youngest, she would go through, not say a word about anything and just struggle's the wrong word, but just get through it, right? My middle one, she would tell anybody anything, right? So it's very different. So I hear you and I agree. To give those different kids with different personalities, the outlets are really important for us.
Can I just ask?
Yeah.
So just to clarify, each time you're giving students surveys,
Students and staff.
that's new.
Isn't it?
Something we've wanted for a really long time.
It may change, you do anything.
Yeah, that's something that the ISC has talked about for, I don't know, the person that's been here the longest, for a very long time and have been told it couldn't be done. So I'm glad to see that that's it.
So it's right in the website, part of my goals.
As far as like teacher evaluations, just out of curiosity, is student engagement part of that?
Absolutely.
When principals and administrators go into classrooms and watch or discuss, will they then also follow up with students perhaps about like how they are feeling in a classroom?
No,
Okay.
right? My 20 years, 25 years as 25, geez, as an administrator, unless there was something I needed to, it wouldn't be okay as part of the evaluation that we go in. Engagement is a big subset of the framework that we use. So it's scored, it's discussed in the meetings with the teachers, but typically they wouldn't go to the kids and say, well, how do we make this better? Might not be a bad idea in certain situations where the engagement score is low.
And I also will kind of comment that I think that you can have multiple different children sitting in a classroom that are experiencing a classroom in very different ways. And oftentimes I find that you'll hear people saying, well, your kid needs to just be able to deal with difficult situations or adversity, but when they're sitting in that classroom for hours on end, it can feel overwhelming. And I don't know that it isn't a character builder. Like I don't disagree with that to a certain degree, but also that I don't know that it's the child's, you know, it's not on the child to somehow endure it. I feel like teachers somehow need to figure out how they're affecting students
So
in a total classroom.
I say this a lot, and I think it's really important. When you talk about change and doing things differently, there are a lot of things, and again, to no fault of anybody, except the revolving door in my seat, right? There are a lot of things that need to be put back in the box, right? Procedures, policies, way people do things. I don't want to forget my point.
Mhm.
But I say this a lot, where teaching our products, as far as teachers are concerned, are students, right? They're not building tables, right? If I was the CEO of a company who built tables, and I could say, okay, I don't care how you get it, whatever. I could go and say, I want 10 more tables built by each person. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if they're disgruntled doing it, just get your tables done, right? If we change stuff or put things in place that teachers can't see the goal, they're gonna come to work and just do their job. I wouldn't want my kids in that class, right? And then go home. Instead of coming to work and doing your damn job, right? And with energy and making sure that happens. So, you know, all of that, it unfortunately takes time. Right? Because I can't come in and say, you know, Dr. Johnson, you're gonna tell your teachers to do this. I don't care what they say. I don't care how they do it, they're gonna do it this way. It just can't happen. So they have got to see from, I'm not a top-down leader, right? From the bottom up, that we're making these changes together and there's a reason why. And I'm listening to them as part of the teacher survey that we're gonna have in the fall. I'm listening to their roadblocks. I'm listening to what gets in their way, giving them the supports that they need. So they can give the supports they need to the teachers, they can give the support they need to the kids, you know, as far as moving up the ladder there. So yeah, I agree with you. So, you know, as far as kids are in that room, we have very different personalities. You're probably all hearing different things that I'm saying. Right? You're gonna leave here with very different, like I could say something in a group of 11 principals, but we're all gonna go back and report it differently to their, because they're gonna hear different things based on what's important to them and what their personalities are. You know, so there's something to be said for, you know, you're gonna have a crappy boss someday, so deal with the teacher that you don't like. But you're right, not to only to a certain extent. And there's no perfect fix to that, unfortunately.
There isn't. I feel like it's just always the irony that I find that I hear people say, well, the kid's got to be flexible, except the teacher as the adult should be the flexible one.
Yep.
Well, I think
And I
there's a
find
difference
sometimes
between
it's
getting
not
used
always
to
that way.
someone's personality,
Yeah.
which may not align with yours, versus teachers who either put kids down or belittle them or shame them or whatever, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like there's a
So
difference.
First, I wanted to thank you for including the community the way that you did in every step of the process. I went to all of the
Yep.
strategic planning meetings, and I also wanted to give some feedback that I thought the CCIU stewardship of this process was really impressive.
thank you.
We felt
We're happy with them.
safe under their
Yeah, good.
guidance
Yep.
when they're moving us through the
They're
process.
really good individuals. When we
They are.
met with them, we instantly connected with those three specifically, so it was great.
That's good to
Yeah.
hear. I just wanted to give some feedback as I went to all the meetings and seeing the work that was done there turned into this sheet is really something. Yet as I sit here and look at it, and I look at the 4 priorities that are on here, my feedback is to just want you to know that my experience as a community member and my students' experience reflects very little of what's listed in these 4 priorities.
interesting.
And so that makes them exciting for me to look at as goals.
Mhm.
But I wanted you to know that there are families out there who our current experience
It's not
isn't
that.
happening like what this is, where I think a lot of the community members I've spoken about view this as a continuation of what's already seated here. There is also others who this is aspirational.
I appreciate that. Well, they are goals, right? We
Yes.
we didn't put them on this paper to say these were already happening, right? A matter of fact, they didn't even start yet, right? 26th and July 1, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, they are goals. And hopefully with the individual yearly goals that you see, gonna be more targeted to people's experience. And they can tie themselves and their experience to that a little bit more, but I appreciate that.
And as a follow-up, I think that what some of us have been saying at the table today about, how are we gonna hear about it from the principal, from the building's goals, school goals, whatever. I think it's also about not just hearing about the goals, but the programming that's attached to the goals. I don't know what that looks like, so I can't give an
Me neither.
example,
I don't know
but
either.
say, we're launching this club and that ties into the belonging goal or whatever, you know, like.
I don't know what that looks like.
Break it down
Yeah.
into more actionable stuff because, I don't know if the community's gonna connect the dots on their own.
Yeah, and I said this a bunch of times, the mistrust in this district is astonishing. And I think it goes back to what you're trying to say, right? But the longer, hopefully that I'm here and they see the consistency, that helps. But I hear what you're saying.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Fourth and last one, and I know we're getting short on time. Talent development and retention, not one of, our greatest resources, our staff members, is how they take care of our kids. I'm so impressed with the staff that we have here and what they do. That I think all of the things that we're talking about, would largely or are largely already embraced by our teachers because they want to do the best they can for our kids. They want them to connect. They just don't come to work and just come to work. They really come with the energy and the confidence that they have in the kids that they have. So this has always been a priority for every place that I've been. And it always will be, because it is, I mean, we spend 75% of our budget on salaries and benefits, right? It is our greatest resource that we have. Our teachers are here a long time. We talked about the 25-year anniversaries. Last year, there were 40 of them. This year, there were 25. So right there is 10% of our staff within the 2 years are here 25 years. And that's just, there's 2 years. You look at the continuum of 6-7 years, it's probably close to 50%. Right? That are here over 25 years, which is crazy. It's really, really good. I know people like being here. It's challenging. They like to be challenged. And very impressed by our staff. So.
Yeah, I just want to add to, like, I agree with you, like, the bulk of our teachers are wonderful. I mean, I think, like, if I could say my son skips to school every day, I mean it literally, like, he happily goes to school every single day, excited about all of his teachers, like,
Graduating this year, Michelle?
next year.
Next year. So he's a junior now.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Go ahead. So he's
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, like, I do agree with you, and like, they really care for him in a very, like, beautiful way, and he's really lucky to be a part of the school district and be able to have that experience. Most of his teachers, like, they know him, like, it's interesting, even at report card conference, they'll be like, his writing has grown 10% since this, or like they're tracking goals, and it's really great. So I just wanted to add it there.
Thank you for adding that. I appreciate it. I feel the same way. It's nice to see, and what I'm hoping for is to capture that way of doing things and put it in place for other kids to be able to benefit from that as well. That's really important to me. So you'll see a lot of well, maybe you won't see it, but a lot of my efforts, I can guarantee you'll be around kids who don't have the same resources as other people do this year.
I know we pass on to this, but just, I'm very excited, and I think others are, or anxious to figure out your steps that you plan to take to close the achievement gap,
Yep.
because I know a lot of things have been tried over the
Absolutely.
years, and it's only gotten worse, not better, and so would just love to know, I know that's one of your goals.
Yep.
And I love that, would love to know what you think is going to work at achievement.
Yeah, so if I knew what was gonna work, I would, we would have done it a long time ago in every district. My philosophy, and I think some people have heard it, is there's no, I don't look at the data points, right? There's individual kids like Chase, right? Individual kids. I need to help this student right now. And what that looks like is giving that philosophy to, not giving, discussing, that's what I'm looking for. Anyway, having other people look at that philosophy as well, right? When I was a principal, I would talk to a lot of these things are principle based. That's why I keep going back to my life as a principal. I would tell my people at the beginning of in our first faculty meeting, I was like, what do you see when you look at a classroom? Right? Do you see different expectations before you even meet these kids, just based on who they are? Right? I don't mean to be disrespectful in any way, and I've said this a bunch of times, right? Do you look at the Asian kid and say, I'm gonna be on top of that, his parents are gonna be all over me? Do you look at the black kid and say, well, if you get a B, you'd be great, right? It's horrible. But people do that subconsciously, maybe not. So, but if we don't talk about that, we're never gonna get to the bottom of it. So a lot of it, as I enter this year and these goals, is about having these conversations, difficult conversations about what people see and expect from kids, right? Michelle will be, and I'm sorry calling you out, Michelle. I hate doing that, but I think it's really important, right?
It's all good.
But she pushed for her child, and if she wasn't there, maybe nobody would have, right? There were definitely some times when it could have gone either way. Am I wrong, Michelle?
No, you're absolutely correct.
Right. So, but we have to make sure that if the parent isn't advocating, we still have people advocating in schools. Right? That's where the counselors come in. That's where teachers come in, seeing something in students that can push them. Again, I'll say, look, I'll go back. How many years have I had of high school? Geez, my counselor pushed me to take honors physics. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. I did well in chemistry, wound up failing. Right? Half the year they put me in some New Jersey class. Doing okay now. Right? So, but what I'm saying is a poor grade because you stretched yourself in school isn't going to determine who you are as a person. So that's the philosophy that we have to, get to. And we have to really pour some more efforts. You're going to say, well, what do they look like? I don't know yet. Right? More efforts because I don't know yet because I haven't sat down and really talked to the principals and counseling office about what that looks like. Pour some more efforts into these individual kids and what they need and what we can do. Right? And make connections with the community about tutoring after school. We've made sure those kids that are signed up for tutoring after school are getting more in school that they have. Right, so we're doing little things like that, and there's a lot of things that need to be done that aren't little, but it's a philosophy that people have, especially at the younger grades. If we identify these kids as identify is wrong word. If we give these kids the opportunity and access to this honor, however we call it, this accelerated math track in 4th grade, if they don't make it, okay, it's fine. Right, but if they don't try, they're never going to know.
Yeah, I also wonder, I mean, even if the teachers did everything they were supposed to do, there's still this dynamic of some of our schools are more diverse than others. And I've observed some classes where there's one black kid in the class or 2 black kids in the class. And that's a dynamic that kid is dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So how can the district and teachers and measure be sensitive to that dynamic and make sure that students supported in a way that's going to be unique and different to the other students because they're not experiencing that.
Well, I think, I don't know, I'm not a black kid, right? I never was. So I don't mean that disrespectfully. I think it's important, right? It all depends on, that's where the home and school connection comes in, right? What's the philosophy and discussions going on at home? Because the teacher may be able to do certain things or feel they're doing a lot of things, but as the kid is sitting there, whether it be someone who's in special ed, whether it be someone with a disability, whether it be somebody who is not like everybody else, right? A minority in that class, however it is, right? They're going to feel a certain way that we have no idea, right? Sensitive is one thing, but we have to be able to communicate to the people around him in that circle to be able to really get the best of it. So I think more efforts need to be taken in that area rather than worrying if we're number 3 or 2 in the state. That's what I feel. Yeah.
I was curious just to that, if, because I thought that was really important towards saying like, let's hit some of these things head on. Is any part of professional development that's planned tied into like implicit bias or different things like that? Or how far out do you kind of look at?
Yeah.
Is it just this coming year that we've got?
Yeah, so yes, yes and no, right? We'll lock in this coming year, but our plans as we go forward are okay. Year 2, we're going to try this bit that fits into this. Year 3, we're going to do this. So yes, we probably go 2 years out from what we are, but I won't wait for that, right? I took over some responsibilities in the schools when it comes to dealing with certain people, not certain, one person in every school. And that's part of why I did that, so I could get in the schools and find out how we're attacking these situations that maybe we weren't so successful in the past. and let's do something different. So, but yeah, a couple of years
Seems
out.
like that would be a.
But trying to train 800 teachers in something is different. Right? We have a lot of differing views. If you get them in small groups, they're able to talk, ask questions, and you really could move people in that way. So that's more of a way that I'd like to go. A lot of work and a lot of time, unfortunately, but it's better than putting out a video on professional development. Right? They're gonna, and I was a teacher too, grade my papers while I'm listening to them. It is what it is, right? But rather than engage them, just like a kid in the class, engage them in a conversation. Right? Model what you want them to do in class, in professional development, what we want them to learn. So. All right, we have a few more minutes. Any other questions that you have? Maybe people online? Because I have unfortunately a meeting at 11.
Okay, understood.
Anyone else? You've done a great job of
Yes.
explaining everything and also
Thank you.
stopping along the way to address everyone's questions. So if no one has anything else, we will
Everybody have a
thank
great
Dr.
summer, yeah.
Ranelli and end the program. Thank you for joining us today. Bye, everyone.
Are these gonna be printed